What's happening? Happy hump day to you and yours. Thanks for joining me. As always, it is appreciated. Quick note here at the top. There will be no podcast on Friday. My apartment will be unavailable on Friday, which means my recording studio, quote unquote, will be unavailable on Friday. So no podcast on Friday. Figured it's not the biggest deal since the Patriots don't have a game this weekend. It's the bye week. So no podcast on Friday. All right, let's get to some news from this morning before we get into the Patriots and whether or not they're going to choose a scapegoat. And if they choose a scapegoat, will it be a surprise choice? We'll get to that in just a couple of minutes. But first, the Patriots, they announced today that there will be a new facility over at Gillette Stadium that is being built. The 3-level structure will more than double the square footage of the team's current footprint located inside Gillette. The training facility will have the day-to-day activities primarily be spent in and around the new center. The core pieces for the team's game day needs, including their stadium locker room, will remain intact. Explained Kraft Sports and Entertainment Chief Operating Officer Jim Nolan, quote, "As teams and team operations have grown, it was time for us to design a larger facility exclusively for the operation of the football team," unquote. Upon arrival through a 2-story foyer, the nutrition center will be the first thing players see when they arrive in the morning and last thing they see when they leave. Adjacent to nutrition is a player lounge. Ooh la la, player lounge. And an enlarged open space locker room connected to an expanded weight room that will open directly onto 3 redesigned practice fields. That's not it. This new training facility will also feature training rooms with a significant expansion of hydro capabilities to include hot tubs, love a good hot tub, cold plunge tubs, a pool, and an underwater treadmill. This training facility will be completed, according to the Patriots, by the spring of 2026. This is long overdue for the Patriots. Gillette's first game was 2002. And if you remember the NFL Players Association report card last year was talked about an awful lot because the Patriots got killed. Ownership got killed. Ownership got a D+. The weight room got an F. There were other areas as part of that report card where the Patriots received C-. So a lot of players in the league look at Gillette Stadium. They look at this Patriots operation and they say it's pretty much podunk. It's back in the day. It's too old school. It's not fancy pants enough. There's not enough room. So this will address many of those problems. This is a great bit of news for the Patriots. It's going to be much better for the players once this is finished in the spring of 2026. And it's going to be a selling point. Now, will it be the best facility in the NFL? I'm not sure. But the fact that it's being built, when it's being built, it should be a very nice training facility. And that should be an extra selling point. So now if you're the Patriots, you feel like you've got the quarterback, you're building this facility, and you can try to sell your coaching staff in certain areas to some of these players in free agency. But these improvements, they do mean a lot to the players. So that's a big story. It's an important story. It will be overlooked because it's not the most exciting story for people to listen to or hear about, read about. But this is a big story for this organization because updating the facilities means a lot when you're trying to recruit players. So that's the good news. All right, let's get into this scapegoat situation. The Patriots, as you and I know, they're 3-10 at the bye week. I think you're looking at what best case scenario? You feel like a 4-13 is the best case scenario? 5-12? Do you think they win 2 games out of their final 4? Do you think they could finish the last month of the season 2-2, given who they're playing against? After the bye week, they play at Arizona. They play Buffalo not once, but twice. They play the Chargers here at Gillette Stadium. Very tough schedule. So I think the best case scenario is the Patriots finishing with a 4-13 record. I can imagine them winning one of those 4 games. I just don't think they're going to be able to split the 4. But it's not just the record. Everybody will look at 4-13 and say, oh, same exact record as last season, right? They made no improvement. Improvement is the key word in that sentence. What I'm looking for is for the Patriots to improve, their young players to develop, the coaching staff to show that they've learned from some of their errors. They're not, making those repeat mistakes. I've said that from the beginning. I've been incredibly consistent on that. What I want to see is improvement from this football team. And you can improve, but not win games. Might sound weird, but you can improve in certain categories and still not be good enough to win 6 or 7 games in an NFL season. So it's not just the record. It's whether or not this team is going to be competitive over the final month. If they're competitive in all 4 of these games, if you're competitive going to Arizona, you feel good about that. If you're competitive against Buffalo both times, you feel really good about that. If you're competitive against Jim Harbaugh, Justin Herbert, and the Chargers pushing for the playoffs, you feel good about that. Can this team be competitive in the final month of the season? Because beyond just the improvement in the coaching, improvement with the on-field product, the development of younger players, you want to see this team be competitive. If the season ends no better than what we've seen up until this point, let's just say, for argument's sake, the final month of this season looks like the first 13 games of this season, for the most part. I beg the question, will someone have to go? I feel like Patriots fans, and tell me if I'm wrong or not, throw a comment in. If the last month of this season looks like the last month that we've had, is that good enough? Or would you want somebody to pay for that? Would you want somebody to be let go? Do you think a change would be necessary? Will someone have to go? I will say this. The last month of the season, if this is non-competitive football from this team over the final month, I will have a big problem with that. And I do think that somebody of consequence should go. I'm not telling you it's Mayo. I'm not telling you it's Eliot Wolf. I'm not telling you it's Alex Van Pelt. My first choice is DeMarcus Covington. If you tell me that you have to change something about this team, you have to change something about this coaching staff because the final month of the season looked like they hadn't improved enough. We had all of the questions that still remained. They hung over our heads like dark clouds. If that's the case, the first guy I'm looking at is DeMarcus Covington. And the reason why I'm looking at DeMarcus Covington is rather obvious. The defense last year was 9th in DVOA. They've gone from 9th to the near bottom of the league. Jawan Bentley is not that important, folks. I love Bentley as a player. I think Bentley is good. Bentley's a very good leader. Bentley would certainly help this team and help this defense. He would certainly help the run defense. But Jawan Bentley is not the difference between being 9th in DVOA and down to the bottom of the league in DVOA defense. And that has been against one of the easiest schedules when you look at DVOA. So first of all, overall, DVOA tells us this defense has been a hell of a lot worse than it was last year, even though Christian Gonzalez has been healthy. Yes, Christian Barmore hurts, but you get the point. The second reason I'm looking at Covington, right now, if I had to make a decision, if I had to change one of the top coaches / coordinators on this team, it'd be Covington. The second reason is this defense has shown no ability to stop the number one option of what the opposing offense wants to do. Let's run through some of this, okay? You played Seattle week 2. Seattle did not have Kenneth Walker. You figure, okay, that's going to seriously impact in a bad way their run game. The number one priority, therefore, is to limit, if not shut down, Geno Smith. Geno Smith, week 2, completed 75% of his passes for 327 yards, a touchdown, no interceptions. He had a 103.1 passer rating. That is Geno Smith's third best passer rating this season. He did not have Kenneth Walker. Let's jump to Aaron Rodgers the following week, week 3. Remember that? Week 3, you play against Aaron Rodgers. DeMarcus Covington walks in. He blitzes Rodgers a bunch. He puts smaller cornerbacks in man coverage against the bigger wide receivers. And Aaron Rodgers has his best game of the season. He has not played any better than he played week 3 against you. He completed 77% of his passes for 281, 2 touchdowns and a pick. He had the best passer rating he's had all year against Covington's defense, which was 118.9. Then you fast forward. Let's jump forward, right? Because that's the beginning of the year. That's the first month. Maybe it's just Covington trying to figure things out. When you jump forward against the Rams, what do you want to do if you're the Patriots defense against the Rams? You want to slow down Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. Did they do that? Of course they did not do that. Nacua and Kupp combined for 13 catches, 229 yards, and not 1, not 2, but 3 touchdowns. Covington decided to continue to blitz Matthew Stafford over and over and over again. Matthew Stafford said, "Thank you, I'll have another," and continued to rip that defense to shreds. Then you played against Miami with Tua Tagovailoa. The thing you want to stop with Tua is the fast passing game, right? He wants to catch the football from the snap, and he wants to get rid of it as soon as freaking possible, which means you have to reroute the receivers. You're not going to get a ton of pass rush. You're going to get this 4-man pass rush that doesn't do much. You want to reroute the receivers and make sure that Tua cannot operate quickly and slice and dice you with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Well, what happened? The fast passing game worked. Tua shred your defense. 317 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, completed more than 72% of his passes. Tua also had the best passer rating of his season against the Patriots at 128.9. You picking up on a theme? And then we can look at last week against Indy. We know what Indy wants to do offensively. The one thing you had to stop against Indianapolis was the run game. Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson. And the Patriots defense gave up 144 rushing yards, and they got killed over and over and over again in crucial situations by Anthony Richardson's legs. So not only when you look at the big picture, this defense is much worse than it was last year, but you're also looking at a situation where this defensive coordinator has been incapable of taking away the best offense that the opposition can bring to the table. That's a problem. I have more on Covington, and I also want to get to whether or not the Patriots would actually choose somebody that is not DeMarcus Covington to be the scapegoat of this season if they have to choose a scapegoat. I want to get to that in a minute. But first, let's go through some of your super chats. I see a bunch of them. We will kick off with Ryan James, $5 super chat. Thank you, Ryan, for the 5. Hey, Nick, very early draft talk, but it's our reality. Do you think Will Campbell out of LSU or Kelvin Banks out of Texas is a better option for left tackle? Interesting question. Look, Matt Miller from ESPN was on Blue Sky the other day. I do Blue Sky and I do Twitter. And Miller tweeted out about Will Campbell entering the NFL draft. And I actually responded to Matt's post and asked him if he saw Campbell as a tackle or a guard, because some people think Campbell can survive at tackle even though he doesn't have great length. Other people say there's no way he can survive at tackle. He's going to be a guard. Matt Miller was actually the latter and not the former. He believes that Will Campbell is a guard at the NFL level. So it really starts there. I am not qualified enough, frankly, to tell you whether or not Campbell is going to work at tackle at the NFL level. You know, the length and all of that. Some guys are not as long as others with their arms, and they still prove that they can play tackle at a high level in the NFL. Other guys, you know, that arm length is a killer. So that's where you start. If you don't think Campbell can be a tackle, then the answer is obviously Kelvin Banks. Josh Simmons is another guy. He declared for the draft today. He's an interesting human being because he was starting to be seen as one of, if not the top tackle of the class. He was starting to, creep up on Campbell and Banks. He was at Ohio State, Simmons, right? And then he tore his ACL. So we don't know where Simmons is going to land. But if he did not tear his ACL, he might have actually surpassed Campbell and Banks. So he's another guy you kind of look at. He might fall, though, due to the injury. But right now, I'm unsure about Campbell because I'm not an offensive line guru. So right now, I would lean Banks because it seems like Banks does have that length. But we'll see. We'll find out more about the combine, their pro days. There's a lot more to go. If you feel like Campbell has the length to play tackle, then he would be the choice because he's given up like 1 or 2 sacks his entire college career. Anonymous with a $10 super chat. Thank you for the 10, Anonymous. Bye-week super chat. I agree. Nick Covington needs to go. Not even a scapegoat, just not good enough. You could argue that. You could say, hey, look, not even a scapegoat. What I mean by, scapegoat is when you're looking at this situation, if they have to, sacrifice somebody, who is it going to be? And I could see them bring this whole staff back, by the way, because it's been 1 year and we knew the staff was inexperienced. But again, I just want to reemphasize the framing of it. If we all feel like they have to get rid of somebody and it has to be either the coordinators, a coordinator, or the head coach, which one would you choose? Anonymous says he's with me. It's Covington. Will that be who gets chosen if they do have to find that scapegoat? Maybe not. Tell you why in a couple minutes. Vitalix with a $50 super chat. Woo! $50 super chat from Vitalix. Thank you very much for that 50. Wanted to get your opinion on the sliding controversy going around lately with the Trevor Lawrence hit. My question is, we are teaching them to slide wrong. It seems like quarterbacks' heads are served up on a silver platter by propping themselves up with their forearm. It's seen as like a baseball slide, Vitalix. Now, I know some people say sliding is more dangerous. I think it's the timing of the sliding. I don't think it's sliding. I think it's the timing of the sliding. If you slide late, then yes, it can be dangerous because as Vitalix points out, your head is kind of propped up in that position, just like if you're stealing second base. If you watch baseball, guy slides into second, his head's kind of propped up because he's using his forearm down on the ground, correct? So I think it's more about the timing of the slide than the slide itself. If you slide late, then you are susceptible of taking that bad hit. The 2 hits that we talk about the most this year, one was Drake May because of us here locally. I don't think Drake May got hurt because he decided to slide. He got hurt because the hit came from the blind side. He didn't see the guy, and he was kind of stumbling and off balance, so he did get to the slide late. I think Trevor Lawrence, his slide was somewhat late, but I also think that Al Shire was, he was somebody who did something that he regrets. And I don't think it was necessarily the timing from Al Shire. I think it was more the fact that he kind of led with his forearm. So I'm not against sliding. I know some people are. I know Rex Ryan came out on ESPN and said, the guy shouldn't be sliding. I think it's the timing of it. I think, look, what's the other option? If you crumble to the ground awkwardly, you can tear an ACL. If you go in head first, I think you could go helmet to helmet and you risk yourself getting hurt in that way. Inevitably, it's football. When a quarterback runs, if they get hit, there's the possibility of being hurt, right? So I think it's the timing of the slide more than the slide itself. Thank you so much for the 50 Vitalix. Kyle Kirk, $20 super chat. Could Mayo be too insecure for good veteran coaches to be added to the staff? It's a great question. Mayo gets more defensive by the day. I'll be pissed if I see Vrabel, Glenn, Johnson have success while we're stuck. A spade is a spade. Look, I don't know Gerard Mayo personally, but certainly there has been some reporting, namely from Greg Bedard, my buddy, that Mayo does get a little defensive. He has a lot of confidence, which isn't a bad thing, but it might border on too much confidence. And when you have too much confidence, that could lead to some insecurity. And the veteran coaches having those guys around, that could impact you. Now, I will say they brought in Ben McAdoo. I know Ben McAdoo is not a Hall of Fame coach, folks, but he is a veteran coach. I haven't read any issues with him. But it's a interesting question. I hope not, but I really can't answer that because I don't know Mayo personally. And I'm not going to sit here and judge his insecurity levels or his character. He has not shown me, when it comes to working with people, insecurity personally. Again, there have been reports, namely from Greg, that, He rubbed some guys the wrong way in that facility last year. He thinks highly of himself. So maybe he thinks he can figure this all out. And if he does, that might lead us to trouble. Thank you for the 20, Kyle. Chris Chapman, $5 super chat. We'll get on the super chat bandwagon. Well, thank you, Chris. I appreciate you. All right, before we move forward, I want to continue with this because I think I have, look, I'm biased because it's my brain here, right? It's my thought. But I think I have an interesting thought to share with all of you about this scapegoat and what might happen. So you want to stay tuned for that. Before I get to it, though, I want to remind you, this is the first time I've done this. We're 21 minutes deep, but I've got to because that's how this works. You know what I'm going to say. Make sure you click that thumbs up button on the YouTube channel. It helps us. More likes means more people get to watch it. The YouTube algorithm sees those likes and they start sending the video. It starts sending the video to other people who might not be aware of us. So don't forget to hit that thumbs up as you watch. Don't forget to throw your comment in there. Do you agree with me about DeMarcus Covington? Would he be your choice right now if you had to get rid of one of the coordinators? He would be the guy that I choose. I want your comments. Comments also help us with that algorithm. So don't forget to like, don't forget to comment, and don't forget to subscribe. Spotify, Apple Pods, friends, rate, and review. All right, before I get back, I see Marilyn jump in with a $25 super chat. Thank you, Marilyn. It is very much appreciated. Happy holidays to all my fellow Pats fans, especially our fearless leader, Nick. I don't know if I'm a leader, but I appreciate it. I'll be away for most of the rest of the season. No, but we'll check in when able. Don't worry, I've not given up on our team. Well, I hope that you're away for good reasons. I hope you're healthy. I hope the family's healthy. I know last time you went away, it was for like a long vacation to like Paris and stuff and Africa. So hopefully you're good. If you're not good, you don't have to share it, but we're thinking of you if you're not good. But if you are good, enjoy whatever is coming up. Okay, well, Marilyn just jumped into the chat, said she's great. She's going diving. All right, then enjoy the diving. I'm just glad nothing's going on with you. And we will see you every once in a while, I guess. Hopefully you're back around for the offseason because I have a feeling things are going to be pretty hot on this podcast during the offseason. All right, let's get back. Thank you, Marilyn, again for the 25 and enjoy the diving. The other thing about DeMarcus Covington is that he just can't stop the bleeding, right? I mean, how many times are you watching this defense and you say to yourself, man, they just can't stop the bleeding. They can't get this team off the field. They give up these big runs, right? Jacksonville, 32 points over the final 3 quarters in London. They just killed you over the final 3 quarters. You were winning that game by double digits, and then the defense just got ripped apart. Miami a couple of weeks ago, that 24-point second quarter. It's like, what are we doing? The Indy game-winning drive, 19 plays this past weekend. It happens too many times when you're watching this defense and they seemingly don't have an answer and they just can't stop hemorrhaging. That's a problem, and that's on the DC. And I haven't seen them get better with Kyle Duggar back, Christian Barmore back, even though Barmore is not who he was last year because of the blood clot situation. But Christian Barmore at 70%, 75% is still better than pretty much everything else that you had. So you got Duggar back. You got Barmore back. Christian Gonzalez is playing like a legitimate outside cornerback one. He's been terrific. He's been a Pro Bowl caliber guy. Some would argue borderline all-pro caliber corner this year. And I haven't seen the improvement. Andrew Callahan posted this the other day. When you look at the Patriots' defensive ranks, in mid-October, as they entered Week 7, points per game, they were 21st, giving up 23.8 points a game. Right now, they're 20th, giving up 23.6 points a game. When you look at expected points added per play, entering Week 7, the Patriots were 24th in the NFL. Right now, as it stands, EPA per play, they went from 24th Week 7 to 29th right now. Success rate. How successful are you? What's the percentage of your success as a defense? The Patriots, entering Week 7, was 21st in defensive success rate in the NFL. Andrew Callahan points out that right now they're 26th in defensive success rate. So they're getting worse as the season goes on. They're getting players back, and they're getting worse. I mean, you have nonstop defensive back confusion. How many red zone busted coverages have we seen? They've been completely up and down against the run. So I would say if you're going to get rid of one of the coordinators, then it should be right now DeMarcus Covington. But here's my question, and here's what we have to think about. If the Patriots need to let somebody go, if the fan base is clamoring for it, the media is hot, and the Patriots say, all right, Mayo's going to stay, but we've got to make another change to this coaching staff that is going to be significant. I'm not talking about, with all due respect, Tyler Hughes, wide receivers coach, who I think all of us would say has not proven himself and probably will be gone. Some people have issue with Scott Peters, the offensive line coach. I don't, because Scott Peters is, working with a bunch of backups. They've had a ton of injuries. It's been a mess. So I don't think, and by the way, the offensive line, I think, has improved from a blocking standpoint. So I'm not looking at Peters. But I'm talking about Van Pelt or Covington. If the Crafts say, look, Gerard, we're going to keep you. You're going to stay. It's been 1 year. We're keeping you. But you've got to make a significant change. What if Gerard Mayo wants to save DeMarcus Covington? What if Gerard Mayo says, I'm not getting rid of DeMarcus Covington. That's my guy. Covington and Mayo are super close. They've coached for years on this staff together, right? Covington is Mayo's guy. As soon as Mayo got the job, everybody knew. Everybody knew. As soon as Mayo got the job, Covington was going to be the DC. Now, I'm not saying Covington didn't deserve it. Many people would tell you that Covington, if it wasn't this year, at least next year, would have been hired by somebody to be their defensive coordinator. But they were so close. Mayo and Covington are so close that it was easy to predict that Covington would be the guy. Then I want you to think about this. Not only is Covington and Mayo close, I've mentioned this before. Mayo's, if not, then this, those quotes, if we didn't give up 2 50-plus yard runs against Houston, our run defense would have been fine. If the Miami game didn't happen, we would be playing much better. This past week was, if the final drive for the Indy offense didn't happen, the defense would be fine. It would have been a great defensive day. I've already talked enough about that, but Andrew Callahan made a great point. Here's what Andrew posted the other day. Too often, in my opinion, these if you take out comments from Mayo come only to save the defense. It's a great point by Andrew. Most of the time, the vast majority of, hey, if you take this out, then this, those comments, they are thrown out there to excuse or save or defend the defense. Not so much with the offense. The taking out the last drive against Indianapolis, excuse making for the defense. The 50-yard runs versus Houston, excuse making for the defense. The Miami game, where they allowed 34 points, 24 of those in the second quarter. Again, that's excusing the defense. That's trying to save them, throwing them a lifeline. And as Andrew Callahan points out, meanwhile, the offensive holding calls, Mayo just called them frustrating because the offensive line did not adapt to the officiating. So wait a minute. Mayo's going to jump on the offensive line for the holding calls and say that they're frustrating because the offensive line, they're just not adapting to the officiating. But when people want to question some of the defensive mishaps and the big issues, that's when he kind of throws out the, if you take out this, then this. I don't think that's a coincidence. The defense is Mayo's side of the football. Those guys are his guys, right? He's been coaching them for years. They brought a lot of them back in the offseason. Those guys are Gerard Mayo's guys. I'm not saying he doesn't get along with the offensive players. I'm not saying he doesn't care about the offensive players. What I'm saying is it's more of a natural instinct for Mayo to defend the defense when asked about it than it is to defend the offense when asked about certain things. Offensive line is holding. That's on the offensive line. They should be criticized. But giving up 2 50-yard runs or 50-plus-yard runs against Houston, that's on the defense. They should be as equally criticized instead of saying, well, if we didn't give up those runs, our run defense would have been better. Or our run defense is fine. Do you see the difference? I see the difference. So DeMarcus Covington is Mayo's guy, super close to Covington. Mayo has coached the defense. He's a defensive guy. Those are his guys on that side of the football. He's had very close relationships. Think about it. He did Devon Godchaux's podcast before the season. And when you think about the defense, if the defense is bad, that's also an indictment of Gerard Mayo's coaching, right? Because Gerard Mayo's from the defensive side of the football. If this defense isn't getting fixed, that is not only on DeMarcus Covington, it's on Mayo, because you would want Mayo to walk in and go, wait a minute, we got to fix this, DeMarcus. You would expect Mayo during the game to be able to make in-game adjustments as it's happening instead of waiting until halftime or, after the third quarter to make significant adjustments. Mayo would be the one that jumps in and says, wait a minute. You don't expect Mayo to do that offensively, right? Yes, Mayo can say, let's run the ball here. Let's go for it on fourth down here. But I'm talking about X's and O's, right? Like making changes. On the defensive side, if Covington is failing, you would hope that Mayo would pick up the slack, which is another reason why Mayo would be more apt to defend the defense than the offense, because Mayo is more connected to the defense. He's more linked to the defense. He's more synonymous with that side of the football. So if the defense is bad, that's an indictment of Mayo, because Mayo's a defensive guy. Let's not forget, Alex Van Pelt's from the outside. He was not a Gerard Mayo hire. He's not Mayo's guy like Covington is. So I do wonder if the relationship between Covington and Mayo, the fact that Mayo is so much closer to that side of the football, and the fact that if that defense doesn't get better, and if you fire Covington, you're also looking at Mayo, because he should have been able to fix some of those things. I do wonder, because of those factors, because of that relationship, could Alex Van Pelt be the guy that's gone? Would Alex Van Pelt be made the scapegoat instead of Covington? Even though I think most of us would agree, Van Pelt's been better than Covington, if not much better than Covington, especially over the last month or so. Would AVP get that bullet in the back of the head, so to speak, because Mayo and Covington are too close, and Mayo knows that if Covington goes, people are going to be looking at him and ask, why didn't you fix it? If you let Van Pelt go, you can say, all right, well, we can fix that, right? Let's go get somebody who can fix it. Mayo's not going to be asked, how do you fix it? He's going to say, well, I'm going to bring in a new head coach of the offense. Alex Van Pelt, frankly, right now as we sit here, December 4th, Van Pelt is the last guy I would get rid of from this coaching staff. I would not get rid of AVP. I would get rid of Covington. I'm not saying that they should go. I'm just saying, if you asked me the order, I would probably say Covington just ahead of Mayo, and then Van Pelt. Van Pelt is the last guy I want to see right now leave this offense. Month and a half ago, it was different, right? A month to a month and a half ago, 4 to 6 weeks ago, we were saying Van Pelt's got to show us something. He has shown us something. That's the difference. Van Pelt has shown improvement. Covington's defense is going the other way. Mayo, as a head coach, has not shown improvement in a number of different categories. So Van Pelt, to me, out of the big three, so to speak, the head coach, the DC, the OC, out of the big three, Van Pelt should be the safest guy right now. He should be the last dude we're looking at. From 30,000 feet, we've seen overall improvement from Van Pelt's side of the football. He's helping the tackles more. He's been much more creative, right? I mean, think about that shovel play from Sunday. Marcus Jones, along with Antonio Gibson in the pony formation. You know, you fake the hand to Jones and you do the shovel pass to Hunter Henry. The jet sweep to Kendrick Bourne using Jacoby Brissett as the quarterback, because Jacoby Brissett is known as a really good QB sneak guy. You put Brissett out there, not so he runs the QB sneak, but so you can go against that soft edge, because the defense is going to funnel towards the quarterback with Brissett in there, maybe not so much with Drake May, and then you run the jet sweep to Kendrick Bourne for a first down. So we've seen the creativity improve from Alex Van Pelt. Even motion. Evan Lazar pointed this out in his column. After clamoring for it all year, the Patriots used motion at the snap, not just before the snap, but the Patriots used motion at the snap against Indy 20 times. That's one off a season high. So more motion. So we're seeing Van Pelt slowly but surely introduce new concepts and more creativity. How about Drake May? Would you say Alex Van Pelt's done a good job with Drake May? I would. Do you really want to mess around with Drake May's development? I wouldn't. Drake May right now, along with Christian Gonzalez, those two guys are like the saving grace. One on offense, one on defense. Now, hopefully Barmore gets back to who he was. And yes, Keon White might be able to make that move as well. But Drake May right now is the guy. He's the one shining light above everything else that you look at and you go, well, we can feel somewhat good about the future because how Drake May's looked. And that goes hand in hand with Van Pelt. Van Pelt has developed him, has helped him improve and grow. Do you want to wave goodbye to Van Pelt as we see Drake May improve? Now, again, we still have a month left of the season. Drake May might go the other way for the last month, and then we're going, well, okay, well, now we have to kind of look at what's going on here. And was his improvement that great, or did he go against some of the soft? And that conversation will happen. But as long as Drake May doesn't like precipitously fall over the last month of this season, and he looks like the guy that he looks right now, or even gets a little bit better, Alex Van Pelt has done that. He has helped Drake May. He has done a really good job. Do you want to run away from that? Mike Giardi wrote this recently. Of the 41 quarterbacks selected in the first round between 2011 and 2023, 24 of the signal callers had new OCs in year two. Staggering number. And Giardi writes, the bust rate, at least on their original team, is alarming. If you just keep funneling in different offensive coordinators for a young quarterback, it's a disaster. And this is all relatively speaking. I'm not telling you that Van Pelt's perfect. I'm comparing him to Mayo and Covington. If I had to pick a scapegoat today, it'd be Covington. And again, maybe scapegoat's the word, he could absolutely deserve it, right? If I was going to get rid of one of those three guys that we're talking about, Covington would be number one right now. Van Pelt would be 3. And it's an easy 3 to me. Not even close. Because relatively speaking, we've seen that improvement. Van Pelt's not perfect. We talked about it on Monday. His situational play calling needs to be much better. Red zone, short yardage situations at times. It's got to be better. We're not saying he's perfect. It's got to be better. But it's better than Covington and Mayo right now. He could use Antonio Gibson more. We've talked about it. He could throw the football to Gibson more. We've talked about it. Designed Drake May runs. We've talked about it. So Van Pelt's not perfect. He's got problems. He's got things he has to address. And the last 4 games are going to be big for him, just like it's big for everybody else on this football team. I mean, I'm not worried that Mayo would fire AVP instead of Covington. I'm not worried, but I'm keeping my eye on it because of that relationship, because it's Mayo's side of the football. All right. I've got something else to talk about. I want to talk about left tackle for a couple minutes. But first, don't forget, like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. All of those things help us grow. And of course, it doesn't cost you any money to do so. I've said this earlier, no podcast on Friday. My recording studio, which is the little room off to the side of my bedroom, is going to be unavailable for reasons outside of my control. So no podcast on Friday. Just want to alert you to that. Before I get to the left tackle stuff, let me jump to a super chat. Terry with our second $50 super chat of the day. My goodness, Terry coming through. Nick, do you think Kyle Duggar's awful performance is related to coaching, or we should just not have signed him? Happy bye week. Couple things, Terry. Kyle Duggar has always had an issue in coverage. He's never been great at that part of the game. It's the reason why last year in the offseason, I screamed from the mountaintop to keep him, inside the box as a downhill safety more than having him run around with receivers and tight ends. I don't think he's being used to the best of his ability because of that. I don't think you can play him as like a linebacker exclusively because I don't think he's big enough. And he's also been banged up this year. So, but there's a number of factors. One, how's he being utilized? I don't think at times he's utilized correctly. Two, he is banged up. He's got the ankle. We have to include that because I don't think he's 100%. And if you're playing dinged up, it's going to impact your play. Three, he has always had the bad habit of screwing up like once a game, twice a game. Like even when Duggar was at his best, he would have at least one play most weeks where you go, what was he doing? He blew a coverage. What the hell? That has precipitously gotten worse. One thing that Greg Bedard, my buddy Greg, said to me on the podcast that we do, one thing that Greg brought up, which I think is a really good point, he said he talked to somebody and that person was wondering out loud whether or not Duggar's play has been negatively impacted because of Devin McCourty leaving the team, because McCourty retiring. Because remember, McCourty was like the quarterback of the secondary. So McCourty would make sure that Duggar was lined up in the right spot. McCourty would make sure that the communication was correct. And I think that's a fantastic point. When you don't have McCourty out there being that quarterback of the secondary, now Duggar has to kind of step up and take a bigger role. He's kind of lost in the coverage and the communication is bad. And that's because he probably leaned on McCourty a lot. And McCourty would be like, Kyle, you got to be over there. This is what we're running. This is what. So I think it's a combination of factors. And obviously with the way he's playing, then, the extension looks like a bad one. But, hopefully the final month he plays a little bit better. And then hopefully in 2025, he's a better football player and he gets back to making impact plays consistently. But right now, the re-signing of him looks like a huge swing and a miss, especially given the idea that safety was actually pretty deep. Safety is actually, was a pretty deep position in free agency. And you kind of hung your hat on the Kyle Duggar thing. He hasn't been good enough. All right, let's quickly talk about left tackle. Lots of attention, and thank you for the $50 super chat again, Terry. It is much appreciated. Lots of attention paid to left tackle this year. A lot of people said, why not? Why don't you pick a left tackle? Why didn't you pick a left tackle in the second round of the draft? Why didn't you sign Jonah Williams or Tyron Smith? So this is something I've done throughout the year, and I'm going to continue to do it through the rest of the season because I think it's important. It's important to continue to work at what you do. It's important to share the reality of a situation with listeners and viewers and not necessarily dive deep into the narrative echo chambers. And I feel like, when people talk about the offensive line, a lot of it's been, Vidarian Lowe stunk, but why didn't they go out and get a left tackle? I'm here to tell you that Vidarian Lowe is not the reason why the offensive line has had its issues throughout the year. Now, he's been part of the problem at times, certainly, but he is not the number one reason why this offensive line has struggled. They've played better recently, but he's not the reason. And I'm also here to tell you, you might disagree with this when I say this, but I'm going to back it up. So give me a couple minutes here. I'm also going to tell you that Eliot Wolf sticking with Vidarian Lowe wasn't the worst decision he made in the offseason. And it wasn't even a bad decision given the options that he had as of right now. Now, let me explain. Vidarian Lowe, his Pro Football Focus grade is 55.9. If you were of the thought that the Patriots screwed up by not drafting a tackle in the second round, I'm here to tell you that Patrick Paul has a worse overall grade than Vidarian Lowe. I will also tell you that Patrick Paul has only played 100 snaps. Vidarian Lowe has played 605. I will tell you that Blake Fisher has been much worse than Vidarian Lowe and has only played 114 snaps. Roger Rosengarten has played better than Lowe, according to Pro Football Focus. But a couple of things about that. Number one, Rosengarten's playing right tackle, not left tackle. That's a difference, right? Secondly, Rosengarten has Lamar Jackson, Todd Monken as offensive coordinator, and the Ravens' offensive line was the 8th best team in pass protection composite rankings going into last week. Therefore, Rosengarten is playing with an MVP caliber quarterback who is incredible at running around and creating plays, right? He's got Todd Monken for the second year in Baltimore. He's been there for 2 years as the OC and has done a good job in Baltimore. And the offensive line is one of the best pass protection offensive lines in football. Those things help. Context matters. Kingsley Suamataia. I would have drafted Suamataia in the second round. He was in my mock draft. He has been terrible. He's been the worst by far. Vidarian Lowe, again, his overall grade is 55.9. Suamataia's overall grade per Pro Football Focus is 36.7. Suamataia was so bad that he was benched. Kansas City's left tackle situation was so bad that they actually played Joe Tooney at left tackle this past week. Joe Tooney. They went out and they signed DJ Humphries just a couple of weeks ago because left tackle's been so bad. So Patrick Paul, Blake Fisher, Kingsley Suamataia, those guys who have attempted to play left tackle, they've all been worse than Vidarian Lowe. Rosengarten's overall grade, by the way, was 63.6, so he's been better than Lowe. But again, I gave you the context. How about Brandon Coleman? Brandon Coleman, who was drafted ahead of Caden Wallace, he's been better than Vidarian Lowe, 63.4 overall grade, 521 snaps. But again, I will give you the context. Brandon Coleman also has had Jaden Daniels to work with all year long, yet another quarterback that is similar to Lamar Jackson in a lot of ways, right, with their ability to run and things you can do offensively. Brandon Coleman also has Cliff Kingsbury as an offensive coordinator who has a pretty good reputation as an OC. And Washington's pass protection has been 13th best in the league heading into last week. So Washington's offensive line has also been pretty damn good when it comes to pass protection. So the two tackles that were drafted in the second round and then at the top of the third round that were drafted, one of them's a right tackle and has been in a much better position to succeed and has been healthy. Lowe has been part of an offensive line that's been juggled constantly. A first-time offensive coordinator since 2009. First Jacoby Brissett, then Drake May learning on the job, right? With a lot less experience than a guy like Jaden Daniels, certainly of Lamar Jackson. So, and Vidarian Lowe was hurt at the beginning of the year. So those other guys have been healthy, and they've been in much better positions to succeed because of the cast around them and the offensive play caller. Now, what about the free agents? Well, Tyron Smith had a good year, 73.6 overall grade, but he was placed on IR. he didn't get to 600 snaps. Vidarian Lowe has played more snaps than Tyron Smith has played this year. And Tyron Smith is now on IR, and his career might be over. And I know some might say, well, Nick, you can't play the, he got hurt game. I can play the he got hurt game if that was part of the resume. One of the reasons why I would have gone after Tyron Smith, and I don't think Tyron Smith signed here because he wanted to play for the Jets and Aaron Rodgers, and he thought they had a chance to win. He was wrong. But one of the reasons why you would be hesitant to sign Tyron Smith is because he has a long injury history, and he's beyond 30 years old. So it's not necessarily a surprise that he couldn't make it through the year. Jonah Williams is playing right tackle, not left tackle. Again, big difference. He's been better than Vidarian Lowe, but he also just got back from IR. He was hurt. Similar situation to Tyron Smith. He has an injury history. He has an injury history with his knees. And guess what? He hurt his knee and he missed all that time. He just got back right before Thanksgiving. He returned from IR on November 24th. So when you look at Vidarian Lowe, Evan Lazar wrote about his game against Indianapolis. Lowe was solid once again. He got called for a hold when May left the pocket, which happens. He allowed just one hurry when he got matched up with DeForest Buckner. And Lazar says that Lowe did not grade out well by Pro Football Focus as a run blocker, but Lazar didn't see it that way. He thought Lowe had a solid all-around game and had 0 procedural penalties. So I'm not telling you that Vidarian Lowe is great, but what I'm telling you is all the people that are talking about they should have drafted this guy in the second round, none of those guys have outplayed Vidarian Lowe by a significant margin. And the two guys that have been better than Lowe, circumstances were much better to help those guys out. I'm sure they're not on the island as much as Vidarian Lowe's been on the island because the right tackle situation's been a disaster because Chooks decided to retire due to mental health and because Caden Wallace has been hurt all year. So this is not to defend Eliot Wolf's overall offseason from last offseason. I've talked about it. I gave Eliot Wolf at the midway point a D- for his offseason. I will do that again once the season is over, and we will grade him out. So I'm not defending Eliot Wolf's job here because he hasn't done a good enough job from what we see right now. He got a D- on my podcast. But what I am sharing this information for is, again, number one, the reality at left tackle is that it's just tough. It's really tough to find a franchise left tackle unless you draft the franchise left tackle in the first round. That's just the whole thing. That's the whole idea. The reality at left tackle is if you want somebody who's bona fide and almost a guarantee, not a guarantee, but as close to a guarantee as you can get at left tackle, you're going to draft that guy high up in the first round. I mean, even Tyler Guyton, who was drafted later in the first round by the Cowboys and said that the Patriots tried to trade up to draft him, which nobody ever talks about, but Tyler Guyton said that in his post-draft press conference that the Patriots tried to trade up and draft him. Tyler Guyton's been god-awful in Dallas. God-awful. So you decided to draft Drake May. I don't think anybody's going to complain about that decision, right? If you wanted as close to a guarantee to have a left tackle that was a bona fide guy, then the best way to get that, to acquire that, was to draft the tackle at number 3 or trade down a couple of spots and draft one of the top 3 tackles that were in the draft. You had a choice to make, Drake May or the tackle. Some wanted Marvin Harrison Jr. Some didn't even want a tackle to be drafted. Remember that? After free agency, some said draft Marvin Harrison Jr. So when you look at it, again, that was your best chance. You decided to draft Drake May. I don't think anybody is second-guessing that. You drafted Drake May over Joe Alt. You drafted Drake May instead of trading down with the Giants and maybe drafting somebody like Latham or Fashanu. And I think it was the right decision. I thought it was the right decision back then, and I feel even stronger about that now. Let me also say this, because I see my guy JD saying Wolf should have stockpiled available line talent, even low-end bench guys. JD, I appreciate the comment, but let's look at what happened. He did stockpile. He brought in a number of guys. Chuks Okorafor left the game of football due to mental health. I don't know what's going on. I don't pass judgment on guys with mental health issues. I take that seriously. If you want to, you can. Chuks left. I'm sure Eliot Wolf did not think Chuks was going to leave. Even if Chuks didn't work at left tackle, he would have been your number one right tackle. He was practicing in camp. They had 11 straight practices, and he was going to be your starting right tackle. It was going to be David Andrews, Onwenu, and Chuks Okorafor from center to right. Chuks leaves. He's out of the equation. Your backup right tackle was going to be Caden Wallace, if you go off of what was happening at camp. Caden Wallace got hurt, and I think he was placed on IR October 4th. So Caden Wallace did not even have a month of his rookie season to prove that he could play. He got hurt pretty much right off the bat. Last time we saw him, he was on a scooter. So at center, people have issues with center. Again, David Andrews was your starting center. Jake Andrews was going to be your backup center. Jake Andrews got hurt. Jake Andrews got hurt after free agency, after the draft. So your backup center got hurt. Nick Leverett was not supposed to be playing center. Nick Leverett got put at center because David Andrews got hurt. Jake Andrews was hurt. They were both going to be out for the season. And at that point, they didn't have an answer. I don't know how many teams carry three centers. I'm guessing none. So Nick Leverett got slid over. Nick Leverett didn't work out. What'd they do? They went out and they got Ben Brown. Ben Brown's actually been pretty good. Left guard, your starting left guard was supposed to be Sidy Sow. Sidy Sow got hurt. He hasn't been the same the entire year. He's got a foot and ankle problem. He hasn't been the same guy. So you had a change, right? Cole Strange, as we know, out for most of the year with his injury. So you had to move from Sidy Sow, who was the original plan at left guard, to Michael Jordan, who really is, a second guard, third guard on the left side. At right guard, because of what happened at right tackle with Chuks and Caden Wallace, you had to slide Michael Onwenu to right tackle when we know, again, that was not plan A, because plan A, after, they had 11 straight practices when Onwenu was your starting right guard. You had to slide Onwenu to the right tackle because of Chuks Okorafor and Caden Wallace's situation. So now when you slide Onwenu to right tackle to try to solve that problem, now you've got to play Layden Robinson, the fourth-round rookie at right guard, before he's ready. And now he's up and down, and he's not a very good pass blocker, which tends to happen to a lot of young interior offensive linemen. So we have to think about the context. This was not plan A. I'm not telling you that plan A would have worked. I'm not telling you that Vidarian Lowe, let's just think they were healthy. Vidarian Lowe, Sidy Sow, David Andrews, Mike Onwenu, Chuks Okorafor. That was going to be your offensive line week one. I'm not telling you it would have worked. But what I am telling you is this ain't plan A. This is not even plan B. This is like plan E with the offensive line. So that's what happened. They had Band-Aids throughout like the first 10, 11 weeks. They finally have some continuity, and they haven't been great, but they have certainly not been terrible. So, I mean, some things you can't control. And some will say, oh, you're just making excuses. No, I'm giving you reasons. You can't control when a young guy gets hurt. Caden Wallace played a ton of football at Penn State. You can't predict he's going to have a serious injury and be done after month one. You can't predict Chuks Okorafor is going to wake up one day and say, yeah, I don't want to play football right now. You can't predict that. You can't predict David Andrews and Jake Andrews, your 1 and 2 centers, going down with season-ending injuries. These are things you can't predict. And you can't go out there and just, sign a guy and plop him in right before the season or during the season, because it's very tough to get offensive line help because teams are trying to keep as much O-line help as they can. So, they have to absolutely add more bona fide, proven talent on the offensive line. They have to do it. But this was not the plan. This is, we got to adapt and adjust to a bunch of things that happened. 4 or 5 significant injuries and a guy leaving due to mental health. And I don't know how many offensive lines, I don't know how many teams would be able to survive with their third string right tackle, their third string center, their, third string guard on the left side. I don't know how many teams would be able to survive that. I think most offensive lines would stink out loud if they had a bunch of third stringers and practice squad guys out there. But they're not out there because Eliot Wolf said we're going to sign a practice squad guy and he's a starter. That's not what happened. It's not what happened. That's not the fact. It's not the reality. The reality is these guys are playing, these third stringers are playing because they had to play. Because the guys you wanted to play weren't available. You got to put somebody out there. And it's not the offseason, so you can't correct it. You can't go out there and sign somebody. Did you see any offensive lineman get, traded outside of Cam Robinson who hasn't been good and is going to be looking for a big contract? So what happens? All right, let's jump to Charlie. Enjoy the bye week, everyone. Thanks for the breakdown, Nick. I appreciate you, Charlie. Thank you for the 10. Don't forget to help us, like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. All of those things. Very little time. Doesn't cost you any money. Helps us grow the channel, trying to get to 5,500 subscribers. It's going to be a tough road to get there, especially with the Patriots playing so bad. But your help will get us there. Crafts and Kickoffs tomorrow, NFL podcast, 7 p.m. Eastern time. I'll talk NFL tomorrow night while drinking a beer with all of you. You want to swing by and check that out. No podcast on Friday. Again, my podcasting area is unavailable this Friday. So long weekend from the pod. We will be back on Monday, 3 p.m. Eastern, tomorrow night with Crafts and Kickoffs at 7 p.m. Thanks to all of you. This has been the Nick Cattle Show.